Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all staying safe and keeping healthy. A warm and a humble welcome to the webinar series by Sharp under Youth and Adolescent Health. My name is Meghal Kukreja, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Brief introduction about Sharp NGO. Sharp stands for School Health Annual Report Program. Working for over 22 years in the field of holistic development and healthcare of students and children, we at Sharp always try to educate and open conversation on problems related to youth and adolescents during and after pandemic. Through this webinar series, we hope to spark discussion on some very important topics pertaining to today's youth demographic. Depression can be observed as a very common phenomena in today's adolescents. There can be many probable causes whose repercussions are in the form of antisocial behavior, vandalism, bullying, and many other various forms. These signs or characteristics call for an immediate involvement of parents, teachers, and mentors to try to recognize the origin of the same and address it to curb such behavior patterns. Adolescents are at that stage of their lives where their brains are developing. It is one of the most crucial stages wherein proper diagnosis, prognosis, and guidance can help them grow holistically in the near future. To throw more light on this topic of managing aggressive behavior in adolescents, on the panel today, we have Dr. Anuradha, Dr. Bhagyashree, Dr. Sujata, and Dr. Anita. Dr. Anuradha is a psychologist and psychotherapist. She's a former professor and head of Department of Psychology and former Dean, Faculty of Humanities in SNDT Women's University. She has been a member of the Academic Council, Management Council, and Senate of the university. She is trustee and consultant of Institute for Psychological Health. We welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Bhagyashree is a medico with 13 plus years experience in pediatrics, has done a certificate course in adolescent medicine and child and adolescent psychology. She has also done multiple school health checkups and has conducted many adolescent workshops to increase awareness of psychological as well as physical challenges faced by youth today. She's an associate member of AACCI, and with AACCI, she has a training of other doctors in life skill education for adolescents. Thank you for being here, ma'am. Dr. Anita, she's a pediatrician and adolescent specialist trained in. She has been working for the Indian Railway for 23 years. Apart from academics, her other interests include yoga, fitness, marathon running, dance, and reading. Dr. Sujata is Honorable Vice President of Mental Health Foundation. She's also the petitioner that represented MHF India in Delhi High Court that led to amendment in the Mental Health Bill and decriminalization of suicide. She's the mentor and key expert of the widely successful community projects and summer internships organized by Mental Health Foundation and has been extremely proactive towards providing free and accessible mental health aid for the economically and socially backward sections. She's currently also the PI of SBI funded project aiming to build resilience in school children. Thank you for being here with us today, ma'am. Thank you to all our panelists for taking the time to join us. Few instructions before we start the webinar. First, we will have a round of discussion with our panelists, following with a question-answer round. Request the audience to drop in their questions in a question-answer box. We will be taking up live questions, and two best live sharpest question of the day winners will get gift vouchers worth ₹500. Additionally, we request the audience not to fill the chat box with unnecessary messages. We may tend to miss out the important questions. So to start the webinar, and before we go into the depth of the topic, I would like to ask a very basic and a simple question to all our panelists today. And let's try to first understand that how can you describe aggressive behavior in adolescents? What do you think, how it can be described? Anyone can?
Yes. Can I start, Meghal,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
that's okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think it's a nice way to begin because it's always good to, like we say in research, it's good to give operational definitions for everything. So it's not enough to just say, okay, this boy or this girl is aggressive, right? So I think we should perhaps focus on what is perceived as aggression by the parents, by the teachers, by people around the adolescent, maybe even by the peers. Are we looking at verbal aggression, physical aggression, emotional aggression? I would definitely look at all three. So adolescents can be emotionally very aggressive, for example, being very, rebellious, not listening to instructions, not following any kind of basic ground rules that are laid down in the family. They can be verbally aggressive, that is saying things which are not acceptable to the adults around, and of course, physically aggressive. And of course, later we'll come back to many of these things, but I think we should pay a little bit of attention to the subcultural norms in the setting where they are, because in different settings, we know that different levels of aggression are acceptable. So, we should not be in a hurry to label them by saying they're being aggressive. That's just a little start that I thought I would make.
Thank you, ma'am. Continuing on the same line, anyone who would like to add their view before we continue further?
Yeah, I would like to add. Basically, adolescence is the stage of transition from the childhood to the adulthood, as we know, and as we all remember that that was a very, very challenging period of our life, right? So everyone was facing a lot of challenges during this phase, and aggression at a certain limit is a part of development, as in the child is trying to build his own identity, and in that phase he's trying to put up his views, and somehow that is taken up by adults. Suddenly he is putting his views, and why is he behaving this way, why is he back answering me, why is he not following my instructions? That is sometimes taken by parents as aggression. So as ma'am rightly said, we have to assess it properly, whether it is a normal development or it is really an aggressive behavior.
Means there's a very thin line between the part of growth or considering it as a problem in a child.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Sujata.
Yes. Actually, aggression we call a form of behavior in which we intentionally hurt the other person. Either it's a physical hurt or a psychological hurt. So if you are merely thinking about hurting other person, merely thinking does not qualify for aggressive behavior. So it has to be acted upon, then only we can call it an aggressive behavior. Yes.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Anita, would you like to also add something to it?
And what Bhagyashree and my previous speakers have already said, adolescence is a period of turmoil where a lot of physical changes, hormonal changes are happening. The child actually is growing from a childhood to an adulthood. This is that in-between transitional period where they are not able to understand their own bodies, and they might look like adults, but their brain is not mature enough. Now we have scientific evidence that it doesn't happen at the age of 18, that where the so-called majority act comes in. The brain still goes on developing till about 25 years. So every child does not have the maturity and control. And this control, this conflicting emotions, outbursts, impulsivity when seen by others is termed as aggression, because till now the child was in control. Whatever the parents said, mostly children are obedient, or they are fully in control. And once the adolescence happens, they have their own ideas, they start thinking out of the box, they have tangential thinking and peer pressure, a lot of peer pressure. This is the time when they start slowly fading away, and they find their own identity. They want to look, and this is where the conflicts happen, the hormonal things and the emotional turmoil. And there can be various ways they can manifest depending upon they can be mild passive aggression to it can be rage, or it can be a real temper tantrums, or even physical sexual harm to others and self. So we have to understand the whole process to be able to empathize and help the adolescent.
So, Dr. Meghal, just to move on, and I'm sure you're going to take questions from the box later, but I can already see questions about the environment flooding the box. So, I think all my three colleagues have made very important points that yes, hormonal changes, biological changes are happening, but they are colored also by peer influence. And that's an important thing to pick up later in our discussion. And the other thing I think I would like to underline when I said subcultural norms, that sometimes, strange though it might seem, aggressive behavior could just be adaptive. You know, like when you have something that's going to happen to you, you're in an environment where your life is threatened or your sexuality is threatened, perhaps it may not be a good idea not to be aggressive. So I think, again, I come back to my basic concept that we are very quick sometimes to label adolescents and say, you know, chalo, ye to aise hi hai, this is the generation. But I think it's important, and I'm glad you've arranged this discussion, because it's important to look at where is this stemming from. Like all three of my colleagues said, you know, so.
Yes, well, I'm actually on the same grounds. We spoke about adolescence is a transition phase, and it is one of the very delicate and sensitive stage for a child. So, what can be the underlying and probable causes which leads to aggression, which is not labeled as a normal hormonal part, but something which parents should be concerned about? What can be the causes? Because many parents, might wonder what happened to them. So, what from where can be the originating points? So, if we talk about it, any Dr.
I'd like to take that. Yeah.
Yes.
See, certain things are for when we talk about adolescence and the different causes, like Anuradha Madam rightly said, one size doesn't fit all. So the environment, the genetic factors, the environmental factors, like the exposure, whether the child was subjected to child abuse and had a troublesome family environment, whether socio-cultural factors are very important. When the child is from a very poor background or a very hostile background where survival instincts come into being, their aggression almost comes naturally compared to a child who is pampered and is literally on a bed of roses. You can't compare the two, why things are happening like this. So the exposure, media exposure, peer pressure, medications, sometimes medications can lead to aggressive behavior. Then temperamental individual tendencies of the child itself. Some children are very docile, obedient, they like to be in the so-called good books. And some children are very vocal about their differences. And frustration when there is difference between the expectations of the child and the parents and the social pressures, and compared to what the child is actually able to give, like whether it is a result or excelling in sports or whatever. The parenting type, where how the parents are, whether it's a neglectful parenting or authoritative or authoritarian. There are different types, very strict parents, or whether there is any substance abuse in the family, alcoholic father, or fights in the family. All these, so it's a multifactorial thing where so many things have to be looked into.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes even the child is a victim of bully at home or somewhere in the peer groups, and the child is acting aggressive with their parents or in the classroom. Even that can happen. And sometimes the child is sad, or he's into depression, or he's feeling very upset about something, and he becomes aggressive in different situations. So there can be some underlying other emotion that is getting masked by this aggression. They're not able to put up their emotions, or not able to label the emotion properly, and it comes out as an outburst or aggression. That's what we have to think before being reactive or giving any reaction to their aggression.
I'd just like to add two things to all these very important points which are raised. One is, Anita ma'am correctly said media exposure, to which we should add social media, because social media is making a massive impact on the young. And there is this whole trend where, they feel left out. There's this whole FOMO, fear of missing out. So they have to add their 2 paisa bit, ki aur koi bolega, so I have to say something. So I think that is one very important factor. which we cannot ignore, particularly post-pandemic. Like since your whole series is pertaining to the pandemic, so I think that is one very important thing. And we'll come back later, but I thought we should add that at this point. Yeah.
Yes. I think we can categorize these causes into the broader categories, broader areas like biological factors. Okay. So the biological causes, there are certain hormonal imbalances like testosterone or the cortisol imbalances there. There are neurotransmitter imbalances like serotonin, dopamine is there. So one is the biological causes. Other we can say is the psychological causes. Like if the perception of the child or the cognition of the child is, somewhat faulty. Like he has distorted cognitions. He sees things in only black and white. Okay, or they overgeneralize the situation or the thing, or what they can do is they don't see the entire picture, of the situation and picks up from the few. So these are the cognitive distortions which the child can have, and other psychological causes like social rejection, like rejection by the peers, and then they have sexual, physical, or abuse pattern is present. Suppose there is a environmental factors which we can include into the social factors like socialization, and the pattern of parenting is mainly important for that. Like in socialization, if you go back to the child when the child is just 1 or 2 years old, and when he has just started speaking up, there are grandparents in the house who uses foul language, abusive language, and encourage the child to repeat the same. Okay? And when the child repeats, they actually smiles and laugh. That laughter, that smile on the face of grandparents or the parents is a reward for the child. Okay, and when a child see that there is a certain behavior followed by a reward, that behavior automatically gets reinforced. So there are so many reasons for it. Then a child or may have the history of depression or or other chronic illness, or there is a depression in the family, delusion, hallucinations, or the bipolar personalities in the family, which genetically gets transferred into the children, and they and it comes out at a certain phase in their life. It may not come out directly in the childhood, but it may come out during adolescence or sometimes after adolescence also. So there are so many factors. Then they exposure to media and the violent movies and the Netflix and the way the negative characters are being glorified in the movies. Like, and they think that okay, this is the way to have power, have a social status, because I recall one of the clients saying this, child saying this, कि मैडम मरना तो सबको है, अपनी terms पर जी के मरेंगे. Okay, so it's like that. So when you glorify negative things and when you glorify negative behaviors, they are certain to pick it up because during like at the age of 10 to 12, still at the age of 10 to 12, their frontal lobe, the brain, which tells them what is right and what is wrong, is not properly developed. So they picks up whatever comes their way. Aggression is actually a byproduct of number of factors, number of causes. So if we need to carefully look into the causes before doing anything for aggression or stopping the other person for aggression. And of course, the family is the first school and the parents are the first teachers. They imitate the behavior of parents. They think there are role models. And if there are some, gender biased violence in the family, like especially towards the mothers and regarding their roles and everything, the child is bound to pick that up. Whether he stays then aloof or he respects the other, identify with the victim and be like them, or they may identify with the perpetrator. And they are bound to actually, give to the society what he has received from it. So there are so many probable causes.
And since Dr. Sujata has listed for us these different diagnostic possibilities, and we'll go more into, there are so many more, I want to specifically underline that in the DSM, it is mentioned that the criteria for children and adolescents for depression, instead of crying or sadness, can actually be irritability or anger. So I think even general practitioners, family doctors, family seniors in the family, elders, they should all be aware of this. So even like Dr. Bhagyashree said, that it might seem like anger and aggression, but underlying it is a depression. And this we see extremely often, that for a whole year, the parent says he has been behaving in this way or she has been behaving like this. But underlying it is not anxiety, not anger or aggression, but depression. So that is,
Yes, ma'am.
again, important, to know.
Yes, that's true, ma'am, because depression is manifested in a different age, a different way in
Yes,
different.
exactly. In adolescents and in children. Absolutely. Yeah.
Ma'am rightly mentioned about actually family influence and
In
personal
children, it
setting.
can,
Family, the personal setting stimulate aggression because most of the time adolescents spend with their parents. And I think their influence and interactions with them, like Sujata ma'am mentioned about the smile of the parents is a reward for the kids. So, any action performed by them influences them as well. So, I mean, you all have mentioned about a thin line between hormonal changes and an aggressive behavior, which should be a matter of concern. So, what are certain common characteristics manifested in adolescence which parents or teachers should keep in mind and diagnose it as an aggressive behavior or take them to for consultancy for aggressive behavior? What are a few common things which can be seen in adolescents with respect to their covert behavior? Dr. Bhagat,
We can be,
yes, ma'am.
yeah, like that.
Any,
It's okay.
yeah. So, yes, ma'am, you can continue. Yeah, Dr. Bhagat.
So if the child is constantly in the irritable mood or constantly being argumentative or aggressive in verbal way or in the physical way, and if the period is going beyond 6 months, means constantly the child is being very much aggressive, and the child is argumentative in different situations, even with the parents, even with any authority that for that matter, means at even in the school with the teachers or with their peers, child is being argumentative, then we have to see if we need to take any consultation for that. Other than that, if the child is being physically aggressive and abusing somebody or being verbal abuse is also a matter of concern, wherein we should for that matter, if that is also consistent for more than 6 months and child is behaving in a abnormal way, which is not acceptable by the society, which is generally not liked by anyone in the society. So in that way, and he's not listening to the parents in any way, then I think we should go for consultation. So there are different categories of it, like oppositional defiant disorder, that's what we call, or conduct disorder. Even intermittent explosive behavior can be seen. So intermittently child is becoming very, very aggressive. That also can be seen, and the child is not able to control his emotions. That's what happens. So I think in these conditions we need to be more careful and consult the psychologist.
What I generally when I talk to parents, I generally ask them in a very simple way to look for shifts from what they know their child to be before, because you see the parent knows the child very well.
Yeah.
So I say कि आप ये बताओ मुझे कि वो पहले ऐसा नहीं था, अभी ऐसे कर रहा है. Anything like this that you find, out of the way. So for example, if they say कि first he was very particular, clean, tidy, arranging all his stuff nicely, and now I just find he's very disheveled, not clean, and so on, then we worry about addictions, like Dr. Bhagyashree said. So sudden weight loss, then we worry about substance addictions. Then suppose the parents say कि बहुत impulsivity आजकल दिखाई दे रही है, कि पहले he was a very or she was a very thought out person, planful था. So then, like Sujata ma'am said earlier, ADHD could be there, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or maybe a bipolar. I'm seeing a lot of increase in bipolar referrals. amongst adolescents. So if you just look at a cross section, way more than what could be seen earlier. Now, is it because of the environment? Is it just that they are getting pubertal earlier and so something is happening? But a vast increase in bipolarity. And then, of course, like Bhageshri ma'am said, disruptive behaviors of all kinds. So impulse control disorders, conduct disorders, oppositional defiant disorders. One exception I will make to this, conduct disorders. Conduct disorder is very typical. It is a child who has no concern for other children's safety, other children's welfare. It is a child who has no remorse for what they have done. उनको ये नहीं लगता कि अरे मैंने किया वो गलत किया. They feel मैंने सही किया. What did I do wrong? Now this is the group that grows up to become an antisocial personality. So if you're diagnosing antisocial personality, so now you're not looking at a shift. Parents are saying नहीं ये तो हमेशा ही ऐसे था. बचपन में चिड़िया मारता था, चिड़ियों के पर निकालता था. So then you say no, this is conduct, this is antisocial in the making. So we need to explain, I think, to parents and teachers that there are certain behaviors which have always been there, which you should be very careful about, like antisocial PD in the making, conduct disorder, or there are certain behaviors which you have to alert yourself to because they were not like that before and they are becoming like that now.
Yes.
And one thing I have always seen helps because typically, and I'm glad Dr. Bhageshri brought up conduct disorder and ASPD because parents and grandparents, Dr. Sujata said that very correctly, will protect. So they'll say नहीं इसके पिताजी भी ऐसे ही थे, वो तो ना ऐसे ही शैतान है, doesn't listen. But when you listen to behaviors, it is like मम्मी को मारा, गरम चीज थी वो फेंकी किसी के ऊपर. So the first thing that I always tell these parents is, now your child is 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. Imagine the same child at 19. Will you be able to control? Then they say nahi, then he'll be much taller than me, he'll be much stronger. So they are thinking right now, अरे बच्चा है उसको समझाएंगे, but वो नहीं समझने वाला है. So that was a very important point which we must highlight.
All right. Yes, Dr. Anita.
Yeah, like Anuradha Madam and Bhageshri have already said, this conduct disorder, ODD, opposition defiant disorder, ADHD, these are all the roots we can see right in childhood. But when they're very small, the parents ignore and the grandparents or the teachers aren't able to pick up the cues. Where is the borderline of just behaving a little hyperactive, little naughty, and the difference between really being naughty and being mean without any moral remorse that, okay, I should. And sometimes they start getting pleasure out of hurting others, whether it is physical or even emotional. So these are cues which the guardian or the teacher should pick up. And then we should deal early. And even when the personality changes, like if the child is behaving in this way, the child requires counseling at much earlier than adolescent, because once the hormones is set in, it becomes more difficult to control the child. So these things have to be picked up. And aggression can vary from being very aggressive, a rage attack, acting out, temper outburst, to even disruptive behavior. So this might not happen right in front of the parents. He might not just lash out at everybody or beat up his siblings. He might do it on self, which is which the parents have to look into, because that is not very obvious. He might go and destroy his books or destroy his toys, tear up something, destroy something which he really likes. So these are also outbursts which need to be looked into.
Yes, I would like to add little more to it. There is a range of actually behavior, okay, throughout the lifespan. Aggression is present when the child is just a toddler, like biting, scratching something, biting, and all this. This is present even when they are toddlers. But with the passage of time, with the developmental stages, the manifestation of the behavior or the symptoms, it just changes. Like in ADHD, okay, the hyperactivity gets automatically resolved at the age of 12 or 13, okay, but it gets converted into impulsivity, okay, which can if not cured and intervene at that point of time, it may lead to conduct or a bipolar disorder. Because bipolar, we have a impulsive behavior in bipolar. Okay. So if you see a child or your child or someone in your classroom, a child who is arguing too much these days, okay, or for past few days, argument has increased, name calling has increased, the child is answering back more angrily, then he's threatening, pushing someone, getting into physical assaults, like chota chota wala bhi, okay, little bit. So the getting into those physical assaults, and then harming the other person, like harming the relationship of other person by spreading rumors. Okay? They all come under this. And then they exclude certain students in the class. Okay, don't talk to these people. So this is the type of behavior that you need to look out for. And generally, if you look for the studies, observational and throughout their childhood, you will see these common characteristics in almost all the children. Okay, they may get little bit changes are there, but these are the common characteristics which they have. They have extreme impulsivity, they have irritability, like if you stop them or interrupt them in certain activities, they'll lash back. Okay, and then they show a lot of temper tantrums. So it's like my way or highway. You have to you have to give whatever I want, and you can't stop me. So they feel very happy when they see those aggressive programs on the television. Way back, like 20 years back, I saw a child who used to see a lot of cartoons, and then what he used to do, he used to beat up his sibling like anything, like putting him in niche squash karna and all that. When we asked him, so after so much of questioning, he said just one thing. It said, कार्टून में भी तो इतनी जोर से मारते हैं, उनको तो दर्द नहीं होता, इसको क्यों होता है? So that means they are picking that behavior from there, that even after beating them with the hammer and everything, still they are like back again and happily doing and playing with you. So they imitate that behavior there also. And if you don't check at that point of time, it will increase. Okay, it will come out in certain different way when they grow up, but definitely it will be there in them if you don't check at proper time.
Yes, and you mentioned about bipolar disorder, and there are many people actually in the audience who want to know if you can throw some light in layman terms, what is actually bipolar and how can a parent recognize if the child is going on that ground?
Okay. See, bipolar in the childhood, we should not actually jump for labeling bipolar in the childhood only. First, go step by step. First, see if the child is below 12 or 13 years of age, go for ADHD, which generally comes along with ODD, or oppositional defiant disorders. They come, they are comorbid basically to each other. So most of the students, they are present there. So if he or she is more than 12 years, okay, so then it's like that hyperactivity that gets resolved, and then it okay. So when there is impulsivity in the behavior, so impulsivity means that risk-taking behavior is more. Okay, they explore more. They are little insensitive to other people's emotions because at some point of time they have been mistreated or maltreated. They feel that way. Okay, they feel that way. They have been mistreated or maltreated by other people. So the level of empathy is little lesser than other siblings or other classmates or other people of those age, that age. Okay, so when they grow up, so they show two type of symptoms in their behavior. Like bipolar means when depression and the phase of mania, only these two things are present. Okay, like sometimes for at least 2-3 months, the child is having the adolescent is in very high phase, very manic phase. Like he doesn't need any food to get energy. Okay, he is doing so much of work. He is like, I can do that, I can do this. and very high aspirations, working also towards it. It's not that he's not working towards that. Gets angry very, very easily if you interrupt them.
Yeah.
Okay, and they are into that phase of high phase, normal phase
Okay.
and then high phase.
Hmm.
And after 2, 3 months or 4 months, when this impulsivity or the mania phase gets after the parents they miss the diagnosis that okay, it can be bipolar. Okay, so the phase is resolved by 3, 4 months, and then sometimes it maybe immediately or sometimes later comes the phase of depression, in which they are entirely opposite to that was present earlier. Okay, they don't want to talk to other people. They are not interested in the activities that they used to enjoy earlier, and they don't feel like going out, they don't feel like meeting friends. They find very difficult to make decisions, even the simple decisions. In manic phase also decision making is a problem, but at that point of time they have so much confidence that they think that whatever decision they are making is correct. Okay, but in the depression phase they are not able to make the decision. Okay, so depressive phase is almost entirely the downer side of it. They may feel the need for more sleep or lesser sleep in depression. They may eat more or less. Their mood is mainly, towards the lower side. Don't feel like talking to other people, and sometimes don't feel like even getting out of the room. And as far as the being hopeful is concerned, they are little hopeless, like things will not change. And the worst part in this is that whatever decisions they have taken or whatever behaviors they have displayed during the manic phase, they feel so much guilty about all these things, and that guilt adds on to their depression. So there are phases when these two phases are present in a person throughout any lifetime. We call it a uh, bipolar disorder. Sometimes it may happen that person doesn't have the depressive phase, but only the manic phase. Okay, so
Okay.
it's just mania. And if there is only depression present in episodes or throughout, and there is not a single episode of mania, then we don't diagnose it as bipolar. So bipolar means that both the phases has to be present. And for the treatment, generally medication is given, because at that phase in mania, if you give counseling, so they won't be able to receive that counseling, because for them, they are not doing anything wrong. Okay, so they are
Yeah.
not receptive for counseling. So at that case, the medicines are given, which are generally mood stabilizers, which lowers the hyper mode to balance it out. So once they are balanced out on that, then we start the psychotherapy sessions with them, so that they can know, they can have a better understanding of the illness, that why it happened, what were the probable causes, what were the symptoms that were present, and in future how to identify that okay, something is going wrong with me again.
Okay.
Like if they are not sleeping properly, or if have certain issues with the sleep or working, or their functioning is affected, so then again they need to get alarmed and seek help. So this is what we generally
So,
do.
Dr. Megal, if I may add something here,
Yes, ma'am.
I think we have a huge audience. We have close to 100 people listening to us. All these are very important diagnostic entities. We can even add more impulse control disorders like kleptomania, pyromania. There are so many. But you know what I've often seen, that a little information can be very dangerous. So sometimes I find parents or teachers who just label, they say, ये बच्चा बहुत hyperactive है, ये बच्चा बहुत depressed है. So I would go and give this entire audience a message that even if, like just now Dr. Sujata described, you see anything about the child which doesn't to your mind fit a normal pattern, please refer to a physician, a pediatrician, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, somebody
Yeah.
who has the authority and the education background to be able to correctly diagnose. Now
Yeah.
coming back to behavior, so we have covered a very nice spectrum ranging from mood disorders, impulse control disorders, and so on. But coming back to behaviors, see, actually, now since you all were earlier talking about, and Dr. Anita even mentioned aggression against self, we
Yeah.
often see a lot of this, cutting self. We heard all these cases of this blue whale and children doing it to outdo each
Yes,
other.
yes.
So the whole, I mean, these are pointers of borderline personality. But
Hmm.
as Madam said, it's not a good idea to label an adolescent early. You know, we have to wait till age 18. Before that, why should we label? So I would tell parents or teachers or well-wishers around the youngster that don't jump to a diagnosis. It's not your job.
Yeah.
Send it to a professional, let them make a decision. But now there's some very valid questions in the chat box. There are certain behaviors which need not fit some of these diagnostic criteria. And an important one I want to add is covert behaviors, subtle behaviors like stealing and lying.
Yeah.
Now, all these behaviors which we described so far, like Dr. Sujata was describing, physically hitting, punching, and so on. These are sly and covert behaviors. So, किसी की कोई चीज उठा ली, किसी के बारे में, like she said, spreading false rumors about others. So, this can be very dangerous. So, I would also advise that take the vote, take the decision, take the inputs from others around. बाकी बच्चों को भी, because these are the children who have been hurt by this child. They have been the sufferers of that rumor and so on. So I'm not saying we should start rumors, but we should ask others around saying, "Aapki kya rai hai? Is this child doing anything wrong?" Right? The other thing which I think we have been missing a little bit is, like the case Dr. Sujata described, that this child is hitting and beating and saying, "Cartoon mein to usko kuch nahi hota, kaise ho gaya?" Are we also looking at a child who's maybe intellectually a little low? कि वो IQ उसका लो है, इसके लिए वो समझ नहीं पा रहा है कि ये कार्टून की चीज है, वो इमेजिनरी है, मेरे लाइफ में जो है वो सही है, रियल है, तो मैं ये नहीं मार सकता किसको. So sometimes I've seen this happen, that IQ tends to get missed. IQ issues tend to get missed. And the parents say, नहीं ऐसे शैतानी कर रहा था. अरे लेकिन 14-15 साल का बच्चा है, उसको समझ में आना चाहिए कि किसको मारी तो he is going to bleed and he is going to. So then before labeling again, send to a professional who will assess and will find out. If it's low IQ, give him that required special school or remediation or whatever.
True.
So I think that is the risk, that reading a lot on Google Doctor can sometimes lead parents to just jump to conclusions. Ki mera bachcha aisa hai. That child may not be so. There could be other reasons.
Yes, true. Oh, actually, also I would like to focus on one more point. We, throughout the discussion, spoke about a lot of disorders, conduct disorders. Dr. Bhagyashree mentioned about oppositional defiant disorder, verbal abuse, physical abuse, self-harm. So what are the different types of aggressive behavior, or in simpler terms, what are the different types of manifestations which can be seen, like emotionally, physically, verbally, and how can we categorize them to make the audience a little simplified that yes, these are some recognizing types of aggressive behavior which you can see in your child. Dr. Bhagyashree, if you would like to start on this question.
Yeah, but first I would like to tell that the prevalence of such disorders, which include as a psychiatric problem. So these are very less, means only 2 to 3% of children will be having such kind of behavior. So other children who are behaving aggressively could be a normal behavioral development, we can say, or the that can be managed with mild. These are mild aggressive behaviors which can be managed that just by counseling to the parents as well as the child. And so, as ma'am rightly said, that we should not jump to the conclusion by knowing these words that the child is having such kind of disorder, because this is going to need a lot of counseling, behavioral therapy, plus they might need some medication as well. So these are the children who, as I said, they will be having such symptoms for more than 6 months, like they are behaving aggressively. They are having these symptoms to an individual who is not a sibling, and more than 4 such kind of behaviors they may be exhibiting, like losing temper often, or easily getting annoyed for small things, often being angry or resentful. They can be argumentative with authority figures, or they refuse to comply with the rules, or they are deliberately annoying others, or they are often blaming others for their own small mistakes. So everything is, the blame is put on the sibling or the other peers, or they are not taking the responsibility of their own behavior, right? So they can be vindictive 2 times in 6 months. So if all these things are happening, then this is called as oppositional defiant disorder according to DSM-5. Then in conduct disorder, as we know, there's repetitive or persistent pattern for at least 12 months. It is said that they are violating the rules, or they are aggressive to animals or even people, physically as well, or they're resentful, they are destructing the property, or they're running away, or as ma'am said, there is theft or deceitfulness or such kind of behavior which is going on for at least 12 months, and some counseling is not helping. So if then we have to go for psychiatric therapies as well.
I'll just tell you, just to make this a little more interesting, why I feel that the environment, the circumstances matter. So everything Dr. Bhageshri said is very true, and we do have to guard very, very carefully about applying labels, because these labels stick, and then बाद में पूरी school वो बच्चे को ऐसे ही बोलने लगेगी कि ये तो depressive है, ये तो, So I'll just tell you a recent thing that happened. I'm just moving from adolescent little bit towards childhood, because that the case was younger. The child was under 12, but could have very easily been an adolescent. So pandemic times, the child has been online school constantly, has been missing school a lot, has been wanting to go back, and parents are also keen to send the child back. Now school has reopened, the child is very happy to go back, and school starts, and teacher is giving them some work in class. Now this is a very bright child, extremely bright. तो उसका काम हो जाता है फटाफट, spellings दिया लिख लिया, maths किया लिख लिया. Now he gets up and he starts wandering around class. Why? Not because he is dull and he doesn't know you're not supposed to do that. Not because he's bipolar and he's manic and he's excitable. Not because he's ADHD. Simply because he finished his work, and that's what he used to do at home. Online school में जब उसका काम हो जाता था, वो उठ के घूम लेता था घर में. So that's what he started doing in school. So teacher said, नहीं बेटा ऐसा नहीं करते, आपका काम हो गया ना, आप बैठो या तो किसी और को help करो. Okay. So now this boy, like a good child, is going and meeting another child who's not finished his work. He's trying to show him how to do it. Okay. And this other boy says, "तू मेरे को मत बता, मेरे को नहीं सीखना है." He gets angry कि मैं तेरे को दिखा रहा हूँ कैसे करने का, and you're saying no. So he breaks off his pencil. And the complaint goes to the teacher. Now see this picture. You're seeing aggression. उसकी चीज उसने तोड़ी है. No remorse. Teacher says, "Arey, why did you break his pencil?" He says, "Teacher, you told me to go and help somebody. I'm going and helping him. He's not listening to me." Now teacher doesn't know what to do. कि वो smart तो है, full marks लाता है. In online school में बहुत अच्छा performance था. Offline school में adjust नहीं हो पा रहा है. Now would I label this child aggressive? I would wait. Because see the circumstances, why is this child to blame? He's doing what is coming to him naturally. So maybe what I would rather tell the teacher is give him an accelerated program. उसको और 5 sums दे दो जो ज़्यादा difficult है, and give him a reward for the end of it. कि जो भी बच्चे 10 मिनट के अंदर complete करते हैं, सबको extra sums मिलेंगे, और अगर वो sums correct किए तो सबको एक pencil मिलेगी. I mean, reward that behavior. So you see, I'm trying to show that aggressive behavior can arise out of circumstances. True. Sometimes, like ma'am said very correctly earlier, my father is beating up my mother every day at home. I can't bear to see it. One day I go and I bash up my father. Now, how do you say that this child has done wrong? He says, I'm protecting my mother. Am I not supposed to do that? So I think please let each parent, each teacher see the big picture. Let us not start labeling. It's very attractive to use all these diagnostic labels because they are very interesting, but they may not apply to the child.
Well, with this incident, actually, like you mentioned that the child broke off the pencil. It was a very active, aggressive part. And I remember Dr. Anita mentioning previously about passive aggression and active aggression. So, ma'am, I would like to ask you that what is the difference in the child's mind? Because active aggression, he just bursts out. But in passive, I think the child suppresses his anger, or what is the Yeah. What? How?
Active aggression, see aggression, the child is showing a unexpected behavior because out of frustration, he doesn't want to
Yeah.
do. He will answer back, he'll show violent tantrums, he will beat up somebody. This is very visible. Passive
Yeah.
means he might not answer back, but he will not do what he's supposed to do. He will, if you want him to do his homework, he will not finish his homework, but he will not fight with you. He will not show any physical form of aggression. So he will quietly show defiance. So even if you tell him to finish his food, he will not finish even if he is hungry. So this is defiant behavior. He's passively aggressive. He will do what he wants. He will not listen to you. Instead of fighting or showing physical differences, he'll just remain quiet and do whatever he pleases. And that is a form of repressed anger. Expressed anger is definitely harmful, but this is more harmful because you don't know what the child can do later on, and how long he's going to carry that angst within himself. So this is passive aggression. There'll be denial, there'll be defiance. You can't actually pinpoint that this is aggression, but he'll do just the opposite of what he's supposed to.
Yes.
And another thing, what Anuradha ma'am said, I'd like to, we have to be very careful what the child is watching in childhood. Like normally parents have, like quasi parents, they put up some cartoon and we feel that all cartoons are very informative. We don't know what the child is imbibing out of the cartoon. We had an aggressive child who used to beat up everybody. So like our old times, say we told the mother to show him mythology, all Rama, Krishna and everything. And what the child absorbed, he liked to become a Rakshas looking at that.
Yeah.
So what exactly the child is absorbing from that, it's better if the mother tries to understand what moral he picked up from watching those cartoons instead of just passively watching. Because somewhere the seed is sown there. This is how aggression, and that's how you identify with the Rakshas more, so you'll go with that idea of it.
It's actually, a child who undergoes passive aggression, I think he or she has inside a lot of stored.
Yes, lots.
So it affects his. Yes, ma'am.
So there will be subtle changes like sleep changes, insomnia. The child will be anxious, not able to complete his work. Sleep problems, appetite problems. These subtle things will show you that the child is troubled inside.
What Dr. Anita said is so interesting. I'm going back a few years. There was this movie called Satya. And once I remember, in a group, this was shown to adolescents and they were told that, don't get into bad company. Aap aise karoge to aap, you land up like how Satya landed up. He died and his whole family idhar-udhar ho gayi. And you know what, the children in that, I'll never forget that. They all said, lekin mujhe Satya banna hi nahi hai, mujhe Bhikkhu Matre banna hai. So, your entire program went off because, like ma'am said, Rakshas banna hai. So, you have to process what is happening in the media with your child. You can't just leave the media to the child, I mean, you have to sit with the child, process it later. So that's one very funny memory. And the other funny memory is that when all these soap operas were happening initially, like I'm talking like an older person because I've seen that generation. Like now they may be in their 30s and all. And children, they would say loudly in front of parents, they would say, ye hai na, ye uncle aur wo baaju wali auntie unka affair hai. तो ये जो बच्चा है ना वो ये आंटी और अंकल का नहीं है वो बाजू वाले अंकल का है and the parents were shocked what is this gyan coming out of the guy's mouth but you're showing these serials to the children and you're not sitting with them to process that information Yes. So to them it is amazingly exciting that this baजू वाला uncle had a baby with this person's mother. What kind of image are you creating?
True.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Actually, the passive aggression, most of the times it's very difficult to actually really know that the child or anyone has a passive aggression. Okay, because for them, because they don't show it openly, they sometimes even they also don't know that they are building up anger. Okay, so aggression is not a one-time thing that something has happened and you just impulsively pump something. You pick it up and then you process it, then slowly and steadily it comes into the behavior. It may take years. So passive aggression generally it gets actually people don't pay attention to it, and the one who is carrying it, they also don't know that they are having this. They are in
Yeah.
a state of denial that they have aggression. But there are certain ways in which you can see that, okay, this person may have passive aggression. It shows in their behavior. Like they avoid doing something deliberately, as ma'am has said. Okay.
Yeah.
So they have the capability of doing things, but they'll show that they are inefficient. Okay. That's the way of doing it. They will show that they have resolved the conflict with the person, but they don't let it go. And then they'll recall so many times that that person has done wrong with me. So, when you recall all those things again and again, so that means you keep a track or,
Yeah.
of what people have done to you. And then you show aggression, okay, or the silent treatments, they are most common. Then if it is showing this type of behavior, then you should think about it, that is it possible that he is or she is having a doing it overtly. Because aggression, overt aggression, we all know, but this passive aggression, if it is there for years, then it comes out very easily. But in adolescents, children, going for crimes, killing someone, that is the accumulated anger in them for years. So we have to pick up this, and not only parents, even a teacher of the class or the classmates, they can also pick up that, okay, this he is doing something which actually is out of proportion.
Yeah.
That behavior is out of proportion, as far as the situation is concerned. If you say something to me, I may get angry. This is, normal proportion. But if I'm getting angry out of proportion and, throwing things and, hurting the other person intentionally, it may happen unintentionally also, like yelling. Someone
Yeah.
else has taken your thing away, that ma'am has said that he has broken his pencil. So it is, unintentional. But he showed that aggression. But if the intention is present, if you ask them, ki, yes, I did it deliberately to harm the other person, then one should be alarmed.
Well, actually, on the similar note, we have many live questions coming up from the audience. So, Nanda Mahatre, if you are there, we have a question. You have a question for the panelists. You may ask. Nanda Mahatre, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. You may ask your question.
My question was, can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Good afternoon to everybody, all the panelists and respected person. I like always this seminar webinar by Sharp NGO. I would like to ask the question number one: how can we help child to accept and adjust with his and her physical changes with healthy mind? This question I asked for. I observe that students are getting very different thinking nowadays, and we are getting shocked with their thinking. So how can we guide them about these changes and their emotional changes also? Do I ask second question now or afterwards?
Actually, let's address your first question, then you might ask the second one.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyone means like answer her? Yes, Dr. Bhageshri.
Yeah, I think in the school itself, we can, right from first standard to 10th standard, we should be taking some workshops or something to develop the emotional literacy in the children. That's what I feel, that if we could help the child to know what he is or what he is good at, what he is bad at, how he behaves in certain situations. So self-awareness can be taught to the children, so that as they are growing, they can cope up with their emotions as well, and we can put them into some certain situations and ask them how will you behave in certain situation, or make some kind of arrangements so that they can create some play, or some through some play therapy or something like that, they are able to express their emotions in or in the stress. How are they going to cope up, how are they going to respond to that? So if they are already knowing the stressors or knowing the situations, what are they going to face, they will be it will be easier for them to uh, face the situations when they are actually coming. So that's what we do through the life skill education programs, is we teach them self-awareness, we teach them coping with emotions and stressors. Then again, the social skills are taught, in which the communication skill is taught, or how to develop the interpersonal relationships. These skills are generally taught. Even the cognitive problems, like means problem solving or decision making, these things are taught in playful manner, so that the child is able to develop these skills right from the childhood, and when he comes into the age of decision making, it becomes easier for the child to cope up, and these aggressive behavior can be controlled right at the age when it is going to be more. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think Dr. Bhagyashree has rightly focused on life skills, which is a very positive way of looking at things, instead of looking only negatively and saying ye behavior kharab hai, ye galat hai. So what are we doing? We are countering that negativity by creating a capacity building in the child, in the youngster, to say the right things, to do the right things. So since she and I are both associated with this AAKI organization, Association for Adolescent and Childcare in India, and there are many others, even Sharp, and so many of you all are doing this life skill based training. Another important element of it is to be able to assert certain values in an assertive manner. You know, like very often the value base of the child goes off because of peer influences.
Yeah.
I remember a recent, around Valentine's Day, 14th February, all these youngsters get, very excited, and they have Rose Day and all these kind of things in college. So there were these two young people who had actually been childhood friends, a boy and a girl. And suddenly they were in coffee shops and, dating and going out. So one day somebody asked them and they said, actually, no, we are not boyfriend and girlfriend. We are just friends, like बचपन से friends है. लेकिन खराब दिखता है ना, सब लोगों का boyfriend है, girlfriend है. तो फिर I will look different, people will laugh at me. तो हमने ऐसे ही decide कर लिया कि तू मेरा boyfriend, मैं तेरी girlfriend. Or we telling everybody that we are boyfriend and girlfriend. Actually ऐसा कुछ नहीं, we are not having any physical contact, nothing. Now these children are pushed into saying this lie, so to speak, simply to fit in with the peer group, because they feel people will laugh at us. Now life skills training will teach them it's okay to say that I don't feel like having a boyfriend at this point. I'm happy doing my academics and my sports and singing and whatever else I do. So life skills is very important because it empowers the youngster to say firmly that I believe in this, I don't believe in this, and I'm not going to do it. हजारों लोग जाके बोले करो, लेकिन मैं नहीं करूँगा. And that skill has to be built in youngsters. Otherwise, they are so vulnerable to go with the flow, because hundreds of others around them are saying, "अरे क्या यार, मतलब अभी तू 9th standard में आ गया और तेरी girlfriend नहीं है." It's almost like they're shamed, into having fun. But maybe they don't want to. So I think that's.
I hope your question is answered. And if you are there, you may ask your second question. I guess you had another one.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
First thing, I'm not satisfied 100% about my first question, because that there was a deep thing. Now this generation is very different. Even though in Zoom meetings also I have got experience that students are sending very bad messages in chat box for teachers also, and they are not thinking this is teacher. And there are some thing to think that when we are saying this, all suggestions I accepted, but the child is coming from other different uh, environment. When he is in school, he is in school environment. When we are giving him good culture and good values, but he is going after school in other environment, and we cannot compare that environment with the school environment, so that he is taking another thing from that environment. That is problem to managing their emotions and physical changes. Second thing is, my next question is, there is progress of parents understanding because educational improvement, but there is a new generation also more improved with their emotional changes. How can we make their changes compatible for healthy physical and psychosocial communication? Now see, in past tense there was not YouTube, there was not Google, and any other channels are also. There were the movies also different now, and so many sexual things and very uh, bad cultural things they are observing in YouTube. Some parents are getting attention, but there are not all parents are getting attention with that. When they got mobile in their hand, and if parents are not educated, child is watching anything. We cannot control them. They are going on Facebook, they are going on YouTube. Some parents are controlling them, but all parents are not controlling them. So that is difference between the old generation and new generation. And so that is a big gap in thinking, and the emotional changes and physical changes we cannot manage nowadays. I think you are getting my point.
Well, Dr. Anita, if you would like to address this question.
Yeah, times are changing. We older generation people are digital immigrants, while the younger ones are digital natives. So it is not possible for us to cope up with the amount of information they get access to. But it is very important that from an early age we keep an open communication. If we see people, if we treat them as friends, and then okay, we might not be able to shut down all their channels which they're not supposed to watch. But if if they trust us enough, and we give them the confidence that okay, you come and tell us some things can be dangerous for you, because cyber safety is also important, which they won't understand at an early age.
Yeah.
So if you keep an open communication, if you empathize, obviously their peer pressure and the environment they live in is very different from what we had as children. We never had so much media exposure, so much social media pressure, and so much access. So that is the only way we can keep a check on them, or we can they can come and they'll come and whatever games and everything, restrict media as much as possible when they are younger, and when they are older, try to keep in touch what exactly they are seeing as much as possible. If we become very strict, then they'll shut off communication, and there'll be no way we can get across.
Yes, actually, harsh punishment is equal to no punishment, basically. Okay, because they don't take it seriously. So if you are trying to discipline them very harshly, so that is a lack of discipline only. So one thing we need to understand that as the children are curious and their age is so that they will look out for everything, they are bombarded with so much of information that instead of stopping them to go for that information and see what exactly is there, we need to educate them as to what to accept and what not to accept. Okay, so that cannot be done overnight. Like there is not one tip which we can give you right now and say that okay, you use this tip and it will work, because you have to work with them. Because whatever behavior they are depicting right now, like sending bad messages to the teachers and writing whatever they want on the chat box, there is so much behind it, and that's why this behavior has come out. As you have said that yes, there are parents where they don't actually check, or they actually use bad language for teachers, and children basically pick from them also कि ठीक है तेरी टीचर को कुछ नहीं आता, like that. So if the parents don't respect the teachers, the child will not respect teachers as well. So the work has to be done on multiple fronts, like what we do in our MHF school program. So we work on the pre-adolescent kids. Okay,
Okay.
instead of working on the adolescent kids, because they already have come to a stage where, it's a little difficult to change them. Okay, so we are working on the pre-adolescent kids to prepare them for the adolescent age,
Hmm.
and the main focus of those, the main theme of those workshops is to build resilience in them.
Hmm.
So whatever may come, they know how to handle it, including everything that happens in the digital world. So along with that, we counsel the parents and the teachers about what the children are going through. Most of the time, children and the parents and the teachers actually don't know what all comes with this developmental stage.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't know. They just you know um, compare it with their childhood, their adolescent age, and most of the parents, 99.9% parents were saint in their childhood, and they haven't done anything, कोई शरारत नहीं की कभी भी किसी ने.
Yeah.
And when it comes to children, that you are like this, we were like that. Okay,
Hmm.
so it has to be in totality. You have to see everything, and it's okay to lag behind. Okay, they are bombarded with information. We didn't have that much of information at our time, but we are ready to learn.
Yeah.
So if we get stuck and rigid that, okay, my way is the right way and this is
Hmm.
what we used to do, you have experience which you can inculcate, or values you can inculcate in them through innovative means,
Hmm.
instead of going by your own old means. So
Hmm.
if you will, I think so, be little innovative, you would be able to actually gain their trust, and then they will listen to you.
Dr. Miguel,
Right.
I love
Yeah.
stories, so I'm just going to add
Yes.
one short story because I like the point raised both by Dr. Anita and Dr. Sujata that one has to build communication channels and trust. Without that, nothing is possible.
Hmm.
So the stories of one grandmother and one young granddaughter, who were both in the kitchen together. And the granddaughter asks her that ये सारी जो चीजें हैं around in the kitchen, suppose you had to have only one, आप एक ही चुन सकते हो, तो आप कौन सी चुनोगे? So she thought the grandmother will say mixer, grinder, gas, some microwave, something. So the grandmother just smiled and she said, I will choose running water. So, the girl, and then she realized that मेरी दादी जब छोटी थी, they used to go to the well and pull water out and all that. So for her, this is such a huge convenience that you turn on a tap और आपको पानी मिल जाता है,
True. True.
That is the kind of communication that we need to create where the child or the adolescent has curiosity. कि अच्छा, you all didn't have cell phones, then how you all used to communicate with each other? मतलब, this simple thing that there was a time when one phone call on a landline used to cost 1 rupee. And today kids are like freely talking on Wi-Fi. And so that difference has to be highlighted for them. Otherwise, they'll never value. Like they'll say, bas aapki kahani aapke paas rakho, So this story I like very much. That Dadi just smiled and she said, I will choose running water. It's one line, but
It's actually so beautiful. Yes, thank you. We have another one, Priyadarshini. Priyadarshini Sar Desai, we have a question from you as well. So if you're there, you may ask your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah. Good evening, all of you. That was like a brainstorming session for us. Ma'am, I have, as a principal, I have dealt with many of such students. One or two stories, like one child, presently the child is studying in grade 10. He creates stories about teachers, keeps on telling me different things. As I'm a residential principal, keeps on telling me different stories about the teacher, creates stories and tells me, which is not actually, then keeps on lying about his friends and colleagues and peers. And wants to collect sympathy. As and when he will tell something and wants to collect sympathy, what can be done about such children, ma'am? He becomes hyper as well. We never tag him. We know that his parents have enrolled him in the hostel because they have some issues with his behavior. His behavioral problem was there. But then we don't tag him in any kind of nothing we are tagging him. So how can I deal with such child?
I think
I'm
it's
done. Thank you.
important to get into the reason, like all my colleagues have said before. ये जो चीज होती है attention seeking is happening for a reason. Possibly the child is not getting enough attention at home, or maybe they want to open a correspondence with you in some way, and they're seeing you as an authority figure who can do something. So again, like I'll just share a short story. This is my own story. I have two children, so when my older child was in school, years ago, of course, as you can see looking at me, my younger child was born, and the older child went and told in school कि मुझे छोटी बहन हुई है, I'm very happy and all that, and her friend said मुझे भी छोटी बहन हुई है, I also have a younger sister. They are both like in first standard or something, okay, or KG or something. So the next time we had a parent teachers meeting, that other child's mother came to school, and I told her congratulations. So she said, about what? So I said, no, your older child said, you have had a baby. And she said, no, I've not had another baby. I have only this one child, So children will do these things. I mean, they don't वो किसी का second number नहीं होना चाहते. तो आपकी छोटी बहन हुई, मेरी भी छोटी बहन हुई, So sometimes children will create stories like this simply to put the spotlight on themselves. So I think it's important to try and find out why these, and particularly since it's happening again and again. एक बार नहीं हुआ है, बार-बार ये बच्चा आके बता रहा है.
For the last 2 years, I need to talk with his parent because he's an adopted child. So I need to talk with his parents. So at the age of 2,
the fact that you said adopted child, I have had very sadly, because a lot of good adoption agencies do counsel parents and explain, exactly how to handle, and it's a very, very sensitive issue, and it's great that parents adopted the child. But I have actually had cases where the child is told that if you don't behave well, we are going to take you back and leave you in the home. So that insecurity, I mean, can you understand an insecurity of a child who believes that his parents are not his parents and he's not wanted, so I think you mentioned a very important factor, and I think you should talk to the parents and also talk to the child yourself, because the child obviously trusts you and wants to talk to you.
But this fact is not revealed with the child that he's been adopted. But
the fact is not revealed.
Yeah, it is not revealed. The child doesn't know.
No, ma'am. The fact is not revealed is one fact. The child doesn't know is a different fact. I don't believe the child doesn't know. I think the child knows. So
they haven't told.
They haven't told, but that doesn't mean the child doesn't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, ma'am, because you have your extended family and friends who are there to tell the child that you are not their, biological son or daughter. Ma'am, you can do one more thing, which I have done with someone who I think maybe it would be helpful for their child also. You can make a child friends with someone, those classmates or the senior students who are emotionally much more mature than him. And they don't, resort to these attention-seeking behavior, so that he can learn from them by observation that you don't have to seek attention of other person to get attention. Okay, so there are a lot of healthy ways also to seek attention rather than to go for rather than to cook all these stories. So maybe that will help the child to adopt a better technique or a solution so that he can get attention from other people without resorting to these stories and all that.
Absolutely. I'll try.
All right. Thank you so much for your question, ma'am. We have another last question actually from Miss Dipali Chetri. Dipali, if you are there, you may ask your question.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
So good evening to all the panelists and everyone who is attending this webinar. I had a query that I work as a special educator, and then when I'm taking psychology for grade 11 also. So there are so many children who do not understand their emotions, and they keep asking me that, ma'am, how to identify our emotions, because we are so much confused about it. So for me, I know that we rate on the scale of 1 to 10, then we identify which one is higher or lesser. So I need to know a few strategies, like how they can identify their emotions and they can work on those emotions.
Shall I answer?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Yes. Ma'am, to begin with, what you can do is you can give them an activity that you need, you write anything, whatever you want to about yourself on a paper. Okay. For 1 day or
Yes.
2 days, they just have to write. And
Mhm.
once they have completed, this writing and everything, then you write
Mhm.
few words like sad, low, high, happy, anger, like all these words, on the blackboard. You can ask the child that now you reread your paper, whatever you have written in that, whatever, catharsis you have done. You just pick up, try to find out which word actually you have referred to or mentioned in your writing. Okay, because for an 11th class student to say that I don't know how to pick up my emotions, I don't know if I have emotions or not. Everyone have that, and everyone knows what emotions are. In this age, generally they are more interested to know how to pick up other person's emotions. Okay, to have that feeling that I know what you are thinking, I know I can read your mind and everything. So this way you can ask them to write down and then relate to it, whether they are able to see that okay, there is anger in their writing or there is happiness in their writing. These are all emotions, and we all go through a range of emotions every day, and it
Mhm.
is absolutely okay and fine to have these emotions. The problem is when it gets out of proportion and when it actually interferes in our day-to-day activity, our functioning. If it is not hampering other person's work and us, it's absolutely fine to have all these emotions. So what they need to understand and know is that when we talk about aggression, so if a child is resorting to physical aggression, verbal aggression, or some relational aggression, passive aggressive aggression, what the child is trying to communicate, because it is a form of communication. So if
Mhm.
you say that if it is a form of communication, the only difference is they are not able to communicate verbally, but they are communicating it in a different way. So we just have to show them, we just have to tell them how to communicate that particular thing in a verbal way and non-harmful way. So they have range of emotions. They know all what emotions are. They just have to look for it and be, assured that yes, we all have these emotions. So you can do this activity and they'll relate to it. They'll come to know that yes, they have emotions and in abundance.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Dr. Megan, you said that was the last question, but I'm seeing that there's somebody called Palak who has asked the same
Yes,
question
ma'am.
4 to 5 times. So I think it's great that you've organized this platform for these questions to be raised, and it's a beginning. So I would tell Palak that it's important that you are identifying that your behavior is different and that you're under stress and exam stress. Again, like Dr. Bhagyashree said, exam stress and handling it is a big part of what Aki also does all India.
Yeah.
So I think please refer your case, your own case. It's fine to self-refer. There's no stigma to going and meeting your family doctor, your psychologist, your pediatrician, anybody, whoever you trust, and go and talk to them about what is bothering you, because it's
Yeah,
not a healthy thing to keep it inside yourself.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, Through this medium, I just want to highlight one more thing, which I think we have missed out. This is about the role of teachers, and the school. Because recently I came across with the case, it's very, very recent, wherein the child was having an examination anxiety, and not only examination anxiety, certain adjustment disorder basically. So whenever there is a transition, like ma'am is giving a certain, notice for test or something, the child used to feel anxiety. Okay,
Okay.
and there was a very harsh comment coming from the teacher is saying जब जब एग्जाम होते हैं तब तब तुम्हें एंजाइटी होती है, वैसे तो कभी नहीं होती है. And this the teacher said in a very bad tone in front of the entire class. So I think so they should also know what the children of this age go through, and what are the issues they face and how to deal with it, how to diagnose it and how to deal with it. So their sensitization is much more important because most of the time we have seen that children rely on their teachers more than their parents. If you say, if the parents say, no, don't do it this way, they'll say, no, my teacher has told me to do it in this way, and I will do it in this way only. So even if they are coming to school for say 6 or 7 hours, it has a huge impact on the mind of students. So here the teachers, if they are more, educated, not in the sense, I will say informative about the mental and physical health and what they go through and how to deal with it, that would be a very, very much important and beneficial for the child, because they are the ones who can tell the parents as well that something is wrong with the teacher. And in my observation, uh, this is what is wrong with the child. In our school, we don't deal with this because this is, we can't have that, it's not our domain type of something, because they take only mild cases. So it's better that if you go to a local doctor, psychiatrist, or psychologist, they would be the better people to deal with this, and they would be better able to tell you what exactly this behavior is leading to. Okay, so that way, I think so teachers have a bigger role to play in this.
Well, I think when we coming to the yes, ma'am, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add to what ma'am said very rightly. In our present current education system, very rarely we think about anything but academic excellence and sports excellence.
Yes.
So an ordinary child who doesn't have these outstanding performance, so these self-esteem and everything leads to the child is not able to cope up later on. So a whole holistic development of the child and encouraging every child, every aspect of the child to make him emotionally and socially better competent rather than having high IQs and high marks. Not just that. So the teachers also should be very sensitive, because next to the parents, the teachers, whatever the teacher remarks, that stays in the mind forever. So it is important to appreciate everything about a child so that you nurture them well to the best of their abilities.
And at the same time, we can't forget that parents and teachers are also extremely stressed. And I think teachers have been the heroes through the pandemic.
Yes.
They have really done everything possible to keep education going. I know of teachers who have little children of their own who have to also study on an online platform, and they've sat in the bathroom because that's the only place in their house where it's quiet and they can continue their lesson, So I think it's important that everybody in the environment can be stressed, not just the adolescents.
Yes.
And we should keep, we are currently doing this project called Prajna Parisar Prakalp, where we are taking all over Maharashtra this concept of emotion-friendly campuses. So, colleges, like Anita ma'am rightly said, we are so focused on academic excellence that we forget to ask, are our teaching staff, non-teaching staff, parents, children, are they happy? Are they satisfied? Are they in touch with their own emotions? So I think that was a very good point made, that academic excellence is of course important, but it's not everything.
Yes.
If you'll excuse me, 5:30, I have a meeting. I just wanted to compliment Dr. Meghal for running this show very well, but I'll have to leave at 5:30.
Yes, ma'am. I was just wrapping up, and I was actually about to say that it coincidentally we ended up on a very bright note. With the, like you spoke about teachers and their stress and everything, and if that is considered, I think it's going to be holistic growth and development as a whole, not only for adolescents but even for our teachers and mentors. And with this, I would actually like to thank all the panelists for today, because I personally believe it was a very informative session. And like I mentioned initially, that I'm going to announce the sharpest question winner, which of course is Nanda Mahatre and Ms. Dipali Chetri. And congratulations to both of you. And somebody from our communication team will contact you shortly and give you your voucher. But yes, thank you everyone once again, the audience, everyone, especially the panelists. With this, we come to the end. And now we have a small feedback from on the screen. Please fill the feedback, and any of your questions unanswered, please post it using hashtag webinar by Sharp. We will try to answer all of them as soon as possible. And you'll get the participation certificate in your mail within 2 days. So yes, thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you.
adolescence